Hello. I promised myself that I would not reply to any more comments to my videos, but I still do read them occasionally. I wanted to address a comment because it is exactly relevant to the previous video that I made on hate. The answer to that gentleman's question is in the video, but perhaps needs to be explained slightly further. I will answer this in a manner that is specifically taught in psychiatry to not do, but I think it will only bring the point slightly closer home. So the comment reads, I have an honest question, Nico. I see your point, you're not wrong, but how exactly do I go about forgiving people that tortured me? I'm not being hyperbolic. My stepfather had a cruel streak. He liked to lock me in the freezer, hold pillows over my face, hold my head underwater. I understand that hate is an emotional response, but how exactly am I supposed to not hate this man, or my mother for allowing it to happen, and frankly not caring until her precious daughter was kidnapped by him? By the way, before I start, and I keep noticing this, my name is actually Nico with a K and not a C. Just saying, guys, fucking double check the spelling. Anyway, with regards to what you said, you're absolutely right, but the answer may not be exactly that. I mean, I'm presuming you're Christian or have been brought up in a Christian society of sorts because of the way that you have used the word forgive there. One needs to understand that forgiveness may not be the goal that you want to achieve, especially if we're talking about something that if you were to do to someone, you would never be able to live with yourself. And I believe having lived the experience that you had with your stepfather, you would find it very difficult to forgive yourself if you were to act in exactly the same manner towards your own children. The good thing is that you know, and you now won't. Your early life might have been hell, and trust me, mine was too in the hands of my own father. However, I tried my very hardest to understand it and figure out that I shouldn't feel guilty about things that happened to me when I was a child. Perhaps you're not feeling exactly guilty and you're feeling hateful towards him for the pain that you suffered through those years, but a child or a teenager cannot relate completely to that emotion. There is an element inside of you that, at least for some part, it tells you that whatever happened to you was in somehow partly your fault. First of all, you need to understand that nothing that happened to you during those times was actually your fault. Absolutely nothing, as you had no control over it, and one of your primary caregivers, the one be trusted to take care of you, took advantage of that and released all his insecurities and pathologies on you. Firstly, I had to think hard, and I understood that a person that does that to a child is a person that is not in complete control of himself. A person like that enforces his power over the weak by force because he has no other avenue to do so. That means that he is inherently weak and insecure about himself. Perhaps he wasn't just mean, but he was a drunken fool that acted out during those times. I don't exactly know your situation, but I'm making assumptions given stories that I heard from other people. What I'm in essence saying here is to try to think about that person's situation and to try and understand the things that may have led him to acting in the way that he did. That enforces your understanding as to what exactly it would take to turn you as a person from how you are now into your stepfather. In the situation of my father, it was abuse when he was a child and lack of understanding that you can actually educate and discipline your children without violence. I could see in him the insecurity of not being able to keep up with me and enforce rules, and being scared that I would turn to be an asshole, like people that tormented him when he was a child. He couldn't keep up with me since I was a kid after all, and all his insecurities played out towards me in terms of violence. That added with the twisted belief that a man is only a man if he has his weaknesses beaten out of him, made him hit me repeatedly. I believe in essence that no one is born inherently evil, and as such situations may turn a person to act like that. If forgiveness is what you're aiming for, thinking in this manner will definitely aid that. But you see, to me forgiveness of that other person is overrated. If it really helps you to forgive in order to move on, then try to understand the other person's situation and forgive him for all the difficult times that you had to live through. But for me, that seemed to be almost unnecessary because I did move on anyway and I was in a good place. What I did need to forgive though was myself. I needed to get his voice and the dogmatic attitudes that he reinforced in my head through violence out of it. I needed to get the anger out. You see, I could see myself repeating patterns of behavior that he did. I would find myself acting in a certain way because of things that he told me. In essence, I was not free to be myself until I understood I was not at fault. I have been formed like this and been forced to have a certain attitude about the world because of what I went through. When I was acting out, when I was being rebellious to absolutely anything, when I had trouble feeling or connecting with others, all those things were not really my fault. From there, I had to move on to seeing that, though it wasn't my fault, it was my responsibility as an adult male to make sure that I'm not my father, that I do not become my father. Forgiveness of yourself and understanding of the other person will lead you to avoiding and repeating the same mistakes your stepfather did. But that can only happen if you do work on avoiding those things. That only works if you try and understand what situations led to you acting in that way. What are the moments that exist inside you that you relate to when you're forced to act out? I felt that by doing that, at least the cycle of violence would be broken. If I'm ever to have children, I'm not going to continue it. That would help in targeting generations of abuse that may have happened before your stepfather, or in my situation, my own father. Or if that is not the case, it will basically help you to not start a new line of abuse. People do not see this, but we do what we learn. We act in the manner that we learn to act. Simply understanding something is wrong. It does not negate the chance that you will devolve into being that person you once hated at some point. Is there any better revenge than moving on, being well, being functional, and living a life free of the boundaries that were enforced upon you in the past? Move past the hate by first understanding it, then try to understand how that very same hate has affected yourself. If you don't want to forgive anyone, at least forgive yourself and change yourself into being a better man than that abuser was. Live a life as a survivor, not a victim. When you go through the process and you are successful, try to help other men do the same thing. Thank you very much for listening.